Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to History Rewind. Before we start, I would like you to hit that red subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our videos. So often we publish videos that praise events in human history, tales of victory over diseases, disaster situations, and the like. But alas, history is also replete with events that we must remember so as to not repeat them. But we wish they never happened. Today's list looks at 5 of the worst moments in history when man showed that he can act with utter contempt for the rest of mankind. Number 1. Great Chinese Famine. From 1958 to 1962, China experienced a monumental famine that killed at least 45 million people. There are generally 2 causes blamed for it: natural disasters and the communist policies of Mao Zedong. Chairman Mao defined this period of his rule as the Great Leap Forward and implemented economic and social changes with epic consequences. This entry is quite similar to number 6 and number 3. Mao intended to turn China from an agrarian economy into a modern, urbanized industrial giant on par with the US, but forcing his Great Leap Forward on the Chinese countryside led to nationwide crop shortages. Then, the Yellow River flooded in 1959, drowning or starving 2 million. The next year, 60% of China's farmland received no rain at all. Mao's idea of forcing farmers into industrial careers further destroyed their harvests. The famine became so intolerable that in some areas, people resorted to cannibalism. Millions were tortured to death for the crime of stealing food to feed their families. One man, Lu Desheng, was found to have stolen a sweet potato, and he and his wife and son were urinated on, then forced to eat large gulps of human feces. They both died within weeks. Mao and his officers meanwhile dined on $1,000 French meals and 20-year-old Scotch whiskey. Mao was on record as having told his officers that there would be many deaths due to his Great Leap Forward, that in the end, they would serve a greater good. The famine only ended when the weather improved in 1962. 5% of China starved to death, drowned, or were murdered. Number 2. Forced extinction of species. Ecologists agree that Earth appears to be experiencing a mass extinction at present. These have happened many times in the past. The extinction of the dinosaurs is believed to have been caused most directly by a comet or asteroid impact. That event was nothing compared to the Permian-Triassic extinction, which may have been caused by a gamma-ray burst. That event resulted in 96% of all marine life and 70% of all land life dying. What has happened to plant and animal species while modern man has been on Earth pales in the shadow of those 2 events. And yet, humanity in general is doing terribly little to maintain critically endangered species. Most humans seem to adore cuddly animals. Anything with fur qualifies, and we have many tastes in what animals are beautiful. The tiger is magnificent. In 2005, there were only 250 breeding Siberian tigers in the Russian wild. There are well over 10,000 in captive breeding programs around the world. Some people are trying to save species from extinction, while many others willfully poach those endangered animals for the black market. Number 3. World War I. One of only 2 wars to make this list. This one does because of the hideous speed at which hostilities escalated in 1914, and because there is no single villain to blame. Humanity in general is to blame for this one. In retrospect, it appears as if every country in Europe was harboring a festering hatred for one another, and everyone was looking for an excuse to invade. The act that touched it off was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, Archduke of Austria-Este, by Gavrilo Princip, whose motive was no more complicated than a desire to prove his bravery to the Serbian army, which had rejected him for being too small and weak. Almost every nation in Europe had a treaty with another nation, and these treaties all said the same thing: if anyone attacks you, we've got your back. Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia, which prompted Russia to declare war on Austro-Hungary, which prompted Germany and Italy to declare war on Russia, which prompted the United Kingdom and France to declare war on Germany and Italy. Spain, and of course, Switzerland, stayed out of it. Number 4. The Black Death. There is no one cause to blame for the bubonic plague's rise to power in 1346, or so. But Europe in general can be criticized strongly for its primitive belief in witches, because witches were hunted down wholesale by reason of an insufferably pervasive fear of the devil. Domestic and feral cats were also killed by the hundreds of thousands because they were thought to be witches' familiars, that without one, a witch could not adequately cast spells. So once the witch hunt showed up in full swing and cats started disappearing into the fires, the entire European world was ripe for an epidemic of rats. And the rats showed up in full swing in 1346 in the Crimea, via the Silk Road from China. There were no cats to check the rats stowing away on board merchant ships, and these rats were infested with fleas. The fleas carried Yersinia pests, better known as the plague. Number 5. World War II. This war can be blamed mostly on one man, Adolf Hitler. Let us take a brief look at the motives by which he initiated global hostilities in 1939. Whereas Stalin was patently paranoid that he would lose his power, Hitler was not afraid. He simply carried a fuming rage which in childhood he directed against nothing in particular. He was imprisoned for his failed beer hall putsch, an attempt to overthrow the Kaiser government in 1923. While serving 8 months, he and Rudolf Hess wrote Mein Kampf, in which Hitler blamed absolutely everything bad that had ever happened to Germany on the Jews. All of them, everywhere on Earth. Whether he actually believed this is open to debate, but there is no denying that he saw in Jews an astounding scapegoat, one against which all non-Jewish Germans would rally. It worked better than he could possibly have imagined. He emerged from prison a national hero, and 10 years later took control of the government. What followed was a nationwide brainwashing. Everyone began hating Jews intensely. Many of the Jews saw the trouble coming and left for England or America. Most stayed, hoping they would be saved. They weren't, until it was too late. 6 years later, Hitler made good on his promise to acquire Lebensraum for the German people by invading Poland. Britain and France immediately declared war on Germany. Russia made a pact with Germany because Stalin knew he could not conquer Germany at the same time. Hitler bided his time before invading Russia 2 years later, in the knowledge that Russia's military was woefully inadequate. Japan invaded China for its resources, and in September 1940, Japan, Italy, and Germany became the formal Axis powers, solely because they understood their identical desires to conquer other countries. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.